They tried testing its range after class. Instructor whispered, "It can hit you before you even stand." Students moved between buildings, carrying books, tools, and small gadgets, talking excitedly about the day ahead. Rumors had been spreading all week about a new addition to their training hall, something that could change the way humans thought about defense technology. Most of the students didn't know exactly what it was, but the whispers were enough to spark curiosity and a little fear. In the middle of the sprawling campus, Mara, the instructor, waited. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes that seemed to look right through a person. Years of experience had given her an understanding of both humans and machines. Today, however, even she felt a small flicker of anticipation. The object she had seen arrive the night before was unlike anything she had trained with. It was compact, smooth, and looked almost alive. She knew the students would be drawn to it, eager to test it, but she also knew its capabilities. This was not just a tool, it was a demonstration of human ingenuity pushed to the limits. As the students entered the hall, their chatter filled the air. The hall itself was massive, with ceilings high enough to accommodate training drones and obstacle courses. Light panels on the walls shimmered softly, adjusting to the movement of everyone inside. In the center of the room, the drone rested on a small pedestal. It was sleek black with silver lines running across its body, and its sensors glowed faintly like watchful eyes. Its presence was commanding, even though it did nothing yet. Myra stepped forward. "Today," she said, her voice carrying easily across the hall, "we have a special opportunity. A new defensive drone has arrived. It can anticipate movement and respond faster than any human can react alone. Your task is simple: observe, understand, and respect its abilities. Do not attempt to override it or force it into error." Several students whispered among themselves. "Faster than humans," one muttered. "It's just a machine. How smart can it really be?" Mara's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "You will see," she said quietly. Her words were meant not to scare, but to make them think. Humans had built this, yes, but it was built to challenge them in ways they had never experienced. She watched as the students gathered around the pedestal, some stepping closer than others, eager to get a first look. The drone's sensors flickered, sensing movement in the hall. It had been calibrated to learn patterns, predict actions, and respond instantaneously. At first, it appeared still, but anyone watching closely could see micro-adjustments in its posture, the subtle shifts that hinted it was already aware. Mara's eyes followed every student. She had trained many generations of humans, and she knew the moment when curiosity could tip into recklessness. She had to make sure they approached this properly. A young student named Jaren, always the boldest in the group, stepped forward. He leaned slightly toward the drone, testing it with a tentative hand. The drone responded instantly, stepping back with smooth precision, its movements so fluid they almost seemed human. The students gasped, and Jaren stumbled back, startled. It moved before I even touched it," he said, voice trembling with excitement and a hint of fear. Mara nodded. "Exactly. It can predict movements, but it will not harm you. This is not a test of strength. It is a test of observation, understanding, and respect." Another student, Lyra, leaned forward, examining the drone closely. "So it's like it knows what we're thinking?" she asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. "In a way," Mara replied. "It doesn't read minds, but it learns patterns very quickly. It responds before most humans can even decide what to do next. That is why your cooperation, your strategy, and your attention are important. This is not just about the machine. It is about what humans can achieve when they combine intelligence, intuition, and teamwork." The students watched, fascinated. Some reached out and the drone responded gently, moving away from any sudden contact. It was precise, careful, and respectful, almost as if it had a personality of its own. Jaren and Lyra exchanged looks of awe. They had trained with drones before, but nothing like this. It wasn't just reactive, it seemed alive in its timing and anticipation. Mara guided the students through the first exercise. "Observe its reactions, take notes. You will have a chance to interact with it, but do not rush. Watch first. Understand the principles behind its movements. Then you may try a limited approach." The students split into pairs, circling the drone carefully, testing minor movements. It responded to each action with perfect timing, tagging lightly with harmless pulses to indicate tracking. Every attempt to surprise it failed, and yet the students were not frustrated. They were amazed. Mara could see the spark of understanding growing in their eyes. Humans had created the drone, but they were beginning to realize that their creation was also teaching them something: patience, observation, and respect for intelligence. By the end of the first hour, the students had made a silent pact with themselves. They would not try to overpower the drone by force or recklessness. They would try to understand it. And the drone, in turn, seemed to acknowledge their intent, moving in harmony with their testing. There was no fear, only challenge and curiosity. After the exercise, Mara gathered the students. What you are seeing is the result of years of human innovation. Technology alone is impressive, but it is the mind behind it that gives it true power. Remember this: even the most advanced machine reflects the creativity and determination of its creators. Learn from it, challenge it, and respect it. Jaren, still catching his breath from the experience, nodded. I get it now. It's not just fast. It's smart in a way we can understand, but it also pushes us to be smarter. Mara smiled. Exactly, that is the essence of what humans are capable of. You will spend the next week observing and interacting with it. Each of you will develop strategies and learn how it reacts. By the end, you may even be able to anticipate its moves, but only by thinking beyond what you normally consider possible. The students left the hall that day buzzing with excitement. Conversations about the drone filled every corner of the academy. Some speculated about its algorithms, others about its predictive capabilities. Yet beneath all the excitement was a deeper realization. Humans had created something extraordinary, and now it was teaching them to be extraordinary in return. That evening, as the sun set over the colony, Mara returned to the hall alone. The drone rested quietly on its pedestal, sensors dimming in the fading light. She studied it, her eyes reflecting a mix of pride and contemplation. It was a machine, yes, but it was also a mirror. A mirror that showed what humans were capable of when they dared to imagine, to create, and to challenge themselves. She whispered to herself, almost as a reminder, "It can hit you before you even stand, but it will also teach you to rise faster than you ever thought possible." In the quiet of the hall, Mara understood that this was only the beginning. The students would learn lessons not from a textbook, but from experience, from the dance between human thought and machine anticipation. And in that dance, humans would discover something they had always known deep down: that ingenuity, teamwork, and adaptability were powers no machine could fully replicate. As night settled over the academy, the drone's sensors glimmered faintly, as if watching the stars outside. Myra left the hall, confident that tomorrow would bring new discoveries, new challenges, and new insights into what it truly meant to be human. The first day had ended, but the real learning had just begun. The sun had barely set over the academy when a few of the more curious students slipped back into the training hall. Their footsteps echoed softly on the polished floor as they approached the pedestal where the drone rested. They had spent the day observing, taking notes, and discussing strategies, but curiosity had gotten the better of them. They wanted to see what the drone could do in action, beyond the controlled exercises led by Mara. Jaren led the group, his eyes alight with excitement. "Let's test it ourselves," he whispered, careful not to attract the attention of other students or staff. Lyra, always cautious, hesitated for a moment. "We have to be careful," she said. "Mara told us not to rush it. If we push too hard, we might break the protocol or worse, get hurt." Jaren waved her concern aside with a grin. "It's not going to hurt us. We just want to see how far it can go, that's all." He knelt slightly, as if to make the drone feel less threatened. The drone's sensors flickered, tiny lights glimmering across its surface. Even in the dim evening light, it moved with a quiet awareness, turning its body just slightly to observe the students. "Ready?" Jaren asked, glancing at the others. They nodded, hearts pounding. They began slowly, making small movements, leaning, stepping sideways, testing the drone's reactions. It was subtle at first. The drone would tilt or adjust its position almost before they had completed the motion. Every time they tried to anticipate its movement, it seemed to be one step ahead, responding in ways that felt both precise and natural. Lyra took a cautious step forward. The drone immediately shifted to meet her movement, stopping just short of touching her. A faint light pulsed from its sensors, signaling that it had registered her action. She jumped back in surprise, her hands pressed to her chest. It knows what I'm going to do before I do it," she exclaimed. Jaren laughed, though a little nervously. "I told you." "It's incredible." The other students started to test it in different ways. moving faster, combining gestures, even pretending to throw objects to see if the drone could anticipate them. Each attempt ended in the same result. The drone reacted instantly, always precise, always just out of reach. And yet it did so without aggression or harm. It was almost playful, challenging them but never unfair. "What is it doing?" asked a student named Rena. "Is it learning us?" "Yes," Jaren said, his voice filled with awe. "It's learning patterns. It sees what we do, predicts what we will do next, and reacts. It's smart, smarter than any training drone I've ever seen." The group decided to step back and observe for a moment. They noticed something they hadn't seen during class. The drone didn't just respond to individuals. It also tracked group behavior. When two students moved together, it adjusted in a way that suggested it was calculating patterns for both at once. When one student hesitated, the drone paused, as if waiting for them to commit to emotion. "This is amazing," Lyra whispered. "It's like it's alive. It thinks in ways we can almost understand, but it's not human. It's something else." Jaren's eyes shone with excitement. "It's exactly like Mara said. We built it, but it's teaching us at the same time." Feeling bolder, the students decided to try something more challenging. They created a small obstacle course with benches, training cones, and other objects left in the hall. Their goal was simple: move from one end to the other without the drone tagging them. It sounded easy in theory, but in practice it was anything but. The first student moved carefully, ducking behind a bench. The drone immediately anticipated the move, adjusting its path smoothly, and tagged the student with a harmless light pulse on the shoulder. The student froze for a moment, startled, then laughed. "It's too fast. I didn't even reach the end." The next student tried a sudden dash, hoping to surprise the drone. But before their feet even hit the floor fully, the drone had moved in perfect timing, tagging them lightly. They stumbled back, eyes wide, and realized that speed alone was not enough. The drone seemed to predict intention, not just motion. Jaren and Lyra exchanged glances. "It's not just fast," Jaren said. "It's thinking ahead. It knows what we want to do before we do it." The students spent the next hour experimenting with different strategies. They tried moving in groups, sending one student in a different direction to distract the drone, while another tried to reach the end. Each time, the drone adapted, adjusting its path instantly to counter their plans. They laughed and shouted with excitement, but beneath the fun was a deeper realization. They were learning something important about their own abilities. "What's incredible," Lyra said between breaths, "is that every time we try something new, the drone learns with us. It doesn't just follow commands. It responds to creativity, to unpredictability. And the more we challenge it, the more we push ourselves to think creatively." By now, even the most skeptical students were mesmerized. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about understanding, anticipating, and adapting. They were discovering that their own minds were growing sharper, faster, more intuitive. And the drone, with its precise, intelligent reactions, was both the teacher and the mirror of their own potential. As the evening grew darker, the students began to coordinate more deliberately. They started experimenting with synchronized movements, trying to confuse the drone by acting in unison or in unexpected sequences. To their surprise, the drone adapted smoothly, countering even the most intricate maneuvers. But the students noticed that small mistakes in their own coordination allowed them to create brief openings. The key, they realized, was not to be faster than the drone, but to be smarter together, to think as a team. Rena laughed as she narrowly avoided being tagged. "I can't believe it. We're learning teamwork because of a machine," Jaren grinned. "Not just teamwork. We're learning strategy, patience, observation, creativity. All of these are things humans do best. And yet the drone is teaching us how to do them better." Lyra nodded, her eyes shining. "It's kind of like it's making us more human. Stronger, faster, smarter, not by making us do things for it, but by challenging us to improve ourselves." The students continued their exercises for another hour, pushing their limits, refining strategies, and testing their intuition. Every time they thought they had discovered a trick or shortcut, the drone adapted instantly. And every time the students adjusted, learning to anticipate not just the drone's actions, but their own and each other's. Finally, exhausted but exhilarated, they stepped back and observed the drone. It remained still on its pedestal, sensors dimmed but still aware, as if acknowledging their efforts. The students laughed, high-fiving each other, and began to gather their belongings. They felt a sense of accomplishment, not because they had won, but because they had discovered new ways to think, move, and cooperate. Jaren turned to Lyra and whispered, "You know what Mara said? She said it could hit you before you even stand." And she was right. But I think it's also showing us how to stand better than we ever could before. Lyra smiled. Yeah, and it's kind of amazing that something so small and simple-looking can teach so much. As they left the hall quietly, the drone's lights glimmered faintly, reflecting in the polished floor. It had done nothing aggressive, nothing harmful, yet it had challenged the students in ways that no human instructor could. It had pushed them to think faster, act more deliberately, and work together as a team. And in doing so, it had reminded them of something important. Human potential was limitless when guided by intelligence, creativity, and cooperation. That night, the students slept with their minds buzzing. They replayed every move, every reaction, and every moment when the drone had anticipated their actions. They talked excitedly among themselves, theorizing, planning, and imagining new ways to challenge it tomorrow. And somewhere deep inside, they all knew the same truth. The drone was not just a test of speed or reflexes. It was a test of human ingenuity, creativity, and adaptability, and in that test they were beginning to excel. Mara, observing from her office, smiled quietly. She had expected curiosity, excitement, and maybe a little fear. What she had seen instead was something far more valuable. Humans pushing themselves, learning from their creation, and discovering that their own minds were the greatest weapon of all. The drone had done its job perfectly. It had challenged them, taught them, and inspired them. In the quiet darkness of the academy, the drone rested, sensors faintly glowing, aware and ready. It had observed, anticipated, and responded to the best humans could offer. And tomorrow, when the students returned, it would do the same, pushing them to think faster, act smarter, and remember one essential truth. Humans were capable of incredible things, and no machine could ever replace their creativity, intuition, and heart. The first night of testing had ended, but the journey had only just begun. The next morning, the students returned to the training hall with renewed energy. The sun had just risen over the colony, casting long, warm beams across the polished floors and metal surfaces of the hall. Even from outside, the drone glimmered softly on its pedestal, as if it were waiting patiently for their arrival. Jaren, Lyra, and the others entered quietly, but excitement radiated from every step they took. Last night's experiences had left them buzzing with ideas, plans, and challenges. Mara stood at the far end of the hall, observing them with her usual calm and sharp gaze. "Today," she said, her voice steady but carrying easily across the hall, "we will go further. You've seen its speed, its anticipation, and its ability to respond to individuals. Today, you will learn how to combine your strengths to challenge it. Remember, the drone reacts, but it does not think like a group. Coordination is your advantage." The students exchanged glances. Coordination, teamwork, that sounded like a completely new layer of challenge. They had spent the first day testing it individually and the second night experimenting with small tactics. Today would push them even further. Jaren stepped forward. "All right, team," he said, smiling. "We need a plan. We've seen how it reacts to individuals. If we want to make progress, we need to move together, think together, act together." Lyra nodded, stepping beside him. "We can't rely on speed or reflexes alone. We need to anticipate its anticipation. If we predict what it expects, maybe we can do something unexpected." The group gathered around the drone, studying it carefully. They decided to start with simple movements, testing small, coordinated actions. At first, they moved in pairs, trying to time their steps and gestures so that the drone would have to respond to two actions at once. It worked, in a sense, but only partially. The drone adjusted flawlessly, tagging one student or the other with a light pulse, almost as if it were playing a game with them. "This is incredible," Rena whispered. "It's tracking all of us at once. It knows who moves first, who hesitates, even who is about to step." "Yes," Mara said from the side, "but notice something. It reacts individually, not as a team. Your strength is in coordination. Work together and you can create openings that it hasn't encountered yet." Encouraged, the students set up a small series of obstacles across the hall, benches, cones, and boxes forming a simple path. Their goal was to reach the far side without being tagged. They split into two groups. One would act as a distraction, drawing the drone's attention, while the other would attempt a different path. The first attempt was chaotic. Jaren ran forward while Lyra moved sideways, but the drone instantly adjusted, tagging Jaren with a pulse and turning to track Lyra. Both students laughed, exhilarated. "We need better timing," Lyra said, panting. "We can't just move at the same time. We have to coordinate, signal, and anticipate together." The group spent the next hour practicing. They experimented with subtle hand signals, eye contact, and timing, learning to move as one unit. Slowly, they began to notice patterns in the drone's behavior. It was fast and precise, but it responded to actions individually. It didn't yet understand collective strategy. This was their opportunity. Finally, they attempted a coordinated sequence. Jaren and Rena acted as decoys, moving deliberately in one direction to draw the drone's attention. Lyra and another student moved in a different direction, carefully timed to avoid detection. For the first time, they created a small opening, and the drone's sensors flickered in response. It adjusted quickly, but the students had gained a fraction of a second advantage, a fraction that felt like an eternity in the moment. "We did it," Jaren whispered, eyes wide with excitement. "It didn't catch us," Lyra smiled, her heart racing. "Not completely, but yes, we found a way to challenge it as a team. That's what Mara meant." Mara nodded from the sidelines. "Good. You are learning to anticipate not just the drone, but each other. That is true human ingenuity. Machines can be precise, fast, and intelligent, but they cannot yet replicate the subtlety of cooperative thought." The students spent the rest of the morning refining their coordination. They practiced moving in patterns, anticipating the drone's responses, and adjusting mid-movement. Every small success built confidence. Every failure taught a lesson. They discovered that the key was not raw speed, but communication, observation, and trust in one another. By midday, the group decided to attempt something more daring. They would all move at once, using the obstacles to create false paths and distractions, testing whether their coordination could truly challenge the drone's predictive abilities. As they prepared, Jaren looked at Lyra and said, "Remember, it's not about beating it. It's about learning from it and learning from each other." The attempt was breathtaking. The students moved like a single organism, shifting, ducking, and signaling in harmony. The drone reacted perfectly to each individual, yet it was momentarily overwhelmed by the synchronized, multi-directional actions. For the first time, the students managed to reach points in the hall without being tagged. Their joy was palpable. They had discovered that human creativity and teamwork could create openings that no machine had anticipated. "This is amazing," Rena said, breathless. "It's like we're teaching each other while also teaching the drone. And the more we practice, the smarter we get." "Yes," Mara said, stepping forward. "And that is exactly the lesson. Humans are capable of adapting, learning, and improving in ways that machines cannot fully replicate. You are not just moving together, you are thinking together. That is your true strength." The students spent the afternoon experimenting with more complex strategies. They tried splitting into multiple teams, varying their speeds, and introducing unexpected patterns. Each attempt revealed a little more about the drone's capabilities, and a little more about their own potential. They discovered that creativity, patience, and observation were as important as speed and reflexes. As the day drew to a close, the students gathered around the drone, sweating, laughing, and exhilarated. They had not defeated it, but they had accomplished something far more meaningful. They had learned to work together, think ahead, and trust in their own and each other's abilities. The drone had been the challenge, but the lesson was theirs. Jaren looked at Mara, smiling widely. "We didn't beat it, but we did something new. We worked together." "And it worked," Mara nodded, eyes shining. "Exactly. You have learned what no machine can ever fully replicate: human collaboration, creativity, and intuition. Today, you have taken the first step toward mastering not just technology, but yourselves." The students left the hall that evening, tired but inspired. Conversations buzzed with ideas, strategies, and reflections. They discussed patterns, timing, and observations, realizing that their own minds had grown sharper. They had learned more in one day than in a week of traditional exercises. As night fell over the colony, Mara returned to her office and looked out over the city lights. She thought about the drone, quiet now on its pedestal, sensors dimmed but always observing. She knew that it had done more than test reflexes or speed. It had inspired a deeper understanding of what humans were capable of when they worked together. It had reminded them of the power of intuition, strategy, and creativity. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that the students themselves had begun to understand something even more profound, that humans were capable of incredible things, and no machine could ever replace the ingenuity, cooperation, and spirit that defined them. The training hall was silent now, but the lessons of the day lingered. The drone had challenged them, yes, but it had also guided them to discover new strengths. And as Mara watched the stars reflect on the polished floor, she knew the students were ready for the next challenge, one that would push them even further, teaching them not just how to anticipate a machine, but how to anticipate the limits of their own potential. The first part of the journey had been about observation, the second about individual challenge. And now, with teamwork and coordination, the students had begun to unlock the true essence of human ingenuity. The drone had become more than a machine. It was a partner in discovery, a teacher in disguise, and a mirror reflecting the limitless potential of humans. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, they slept with the knowledge that humans, working together, could think, adapt, and achieve in ways that no machine could ever fully predict. And that knowledge, that spark of confidence and creativity, was more powerful than any technology in the hall. The morning sun bathed the academy in a golden glow, and the students arrived at the training hall with renewed energy. After their experiences over the past days, they felt a growing connection, not only with the drone, but with each other. The lessons they had learned about observation, prediction, and teamwork had begun to shape their thinking. Today, Mara promised, would take them even further. As they entered the hall, the drone rested silently on its pedestal, sensors faintly glowing. It had been powered down briefly for maintenance, but even in its stillness, it seemed alert. The students gathered around, quietly discussing strategies. Jaren, Lyra, and Rena were already forming plans. They wanted to push the drone's limits, not recklessly, but creatively, testing how far they could challenge its abilities. Mara stood at the far end, observing quietly. "Yesterday, you learned teamwork," she said. "Today, you will learn adaptability. The drone responds to patterns, anticipation, and strategy. But you can also introduce unpredictability. Your creativity is your advantage. Think carefully, act thoughtfully, and remember to work together." The students nodded, feeling the weight and excitement of the challenge. Jaren glanced at the drone and whispered to Lyra, "We've seen what it can do, but today we want to see how it reacts when we break patterns." They began with small, synchronized movements. For the first few minutes, the drone responded flawlessly, tagging lightly, adjusting instantly, and demonstrating its unmatched precision. But the students noticed something interesting. When they varied their timing slightly or changed their sequence unexpectedly, the drone paused for just a fraction of a second longer before reacting. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was enough to give them an opening. "This is it," Lyra whispered. "It's still learning from us. If we keep changing patterns, we can stretch its anticipation." Encouraged, the students decided to introduce more complexity. They created multiple paths using the obstacles in the hall, forming routes that crossed and overlapped. Some students acted as decoys, moving deliberately to attract attention, while others slipped along quieter paths. For the first time, they realized they could influence the drone's actions indirectly. By working as a coordinated team and introducing unpredictability, they could open small windows to reach their goals. Jaren dashed across a route while two teammates moved in different directions, signaling with subtle gestures. The drone followed its usual precise tracking, but the multiple points of activity forced it to split attention. For a moment, it hesitated, recalculating its path. That was enough for Jaren to reach the far side of the hall, tagging a small target cone in triumph. The students erupted in quiet cheers, their excitement restrained only by their awareness of Mara's watchful gaze. "Yes," Reno exclaimed. "We did it, we really did it." Mara smiled faintly. "You see, coordination, creativity, and adaptability, these are human strengths. Technology can anticipate, respond, and calculate, but the human mind can invent, improvise, and connect ideas in ways no machine can fully predict." The students spent the next hour experimenting with even more advanced strategies. They tried varying their speeds, changing paths at the last second, and creating feints that simulated different intentions. Each time, the drone adapted quickly, but it also revealed the subtle limitations of even the most advanced predictive programming. Small variations, unexpected choices, and coordinated deception created openings, and the students learned to recognize and exploit them without breaking the rules or losing control. Lyra noticed something remarkable during one sequence. When she and Rena moved in perfect synchronization, acting as a single unit, the drone's responses lagged slightly. "It's reacting to individuals," she said. "When we act together perfectly, it has to choose which one to track. That split second is our advantage." Jaren nodded, eyes shining. "We're learning how to work together, not just against it. That's the key. It's not just speed or reflexes. Teamwork and creativity make us stronger." The students continued refining their tactics, building trust and understanding among themselves. Each success was a lesson in strategy, observation, and cooperation. Each failure was a reminder to pay attention, adapt, and remain calm. By the afternoon, they had developed a series of complex routines that challenged the drone in ways it had never encountered before. Mara observed quietly, taking mental notes. She had trained humans for years, and she knew that the greatest lessons came not from obedience or repetition, but from exploration, innovation, and problem-solving. Today, the students were discovering that for themselves. As the day progressed, the students introduced another element: timing and anticipation between multiple team members. Some acted as signals, giving subtle gestures to others, while some moved deliberately to force the drone to react in predictable ways. The students realized that they could create sequences that the drone could not fully predict, not because it was slow, but because human ingenuity allowed for creativity beyond algorithmic calculation. "This is amazing," Rena whispered during one attempt, dodging past a sensor pulse. "We're thinking faster, observing more carefully, and working together like never before. The drone isn't just teaching us, it's inspiring us." "Yes," Jaren said, catching his breath. "And it's not just about winning. It's about learning how to think ahead, how to anticipate, how to trust each other. That's what makes humans humans." By late afternoon, the students had spent hours exploring every possible tactic and variation. They were tired but exhilarated. Their movements had become fluid, almost instinctive, as their minds synchronized with their teammates. The drone, ever precise, had responded perfectly, but it had also been stretched beyond simple reaction patterns. It had become a mirror, reflecting not just their motions, but their ingenuity, coordination, and growth. Mara stepped forward, her expression calm but filled with pride. "Today, you have done more than test a machine. You have explored the power of human thought, creativity, and cooperation. The drone is fast, precise, and intelligent, but it cannot match the flexibility, adaptability, and imagination that you have demonstrated. Remember this: machines are tools, humans are innovators." The students gathered around her, breathing heavily but smiling. They had learned lessons that went far beyond training protocols or simple exercises. They had discovered the importance of teamwork, strategy, and creativity, and they had realized that even a perfect machine could be challenged by human thought. As the day came to an end, Mara let the students rest. The drone returned to its pedestal, sensors dimmed, almost as if it were acknowledging their efforts. The students looked at it with a mix of awe and respect. It had tested them, challenged them, and inspired them, but it had also revealed something deeper: the limitless potential of human creativity and cooperation. Walking out of the hall, Jaren turned to Lyra. "Do you realize what we're learning? It's not just how to move or how to be fast. It's how to think, how to anticipate, how to work together. That's incredible." Lyra smiled, her mind still racing from the day's exercises. "I know, and the best part is it's fun. We're learning, we're growing, and we're doing it as a team. That's more than any book or lecture could teach." Rena nodded, exhaustion and excitement mixing in her expression. "And the drone, it's amazing, but we're learning from it, not just about it. That's the part I love the most." Mara watched them leave, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. They had begun to understand something profound: that humans, through observation, creativity, and collaboration, could achieve things that no machine, no matter how advanced, could fully anticipate. The drone had been a challenge, yes, but it had also been a teacher, guiding them to discover their own potential. As night fell over the colony, the students reflected on the day. They had faced the limits of their own abilities and discovered that working together, thinking creatively, and trusting in one another could overcome even the most precise and intelligent technology. They had learned that human ingenuity was not measured in speed or strength alone, but in imagination, observation, and collaboration. The drone rested silently on its pedestal, sensors dimmed but ready. It had responded to every challenge, learned from every movement, and inspired every student to push themselves further. But it had also revealed a truth that Mara had known all along. Humans were capable of incredible things, and no machine could ever replace their creativity, adaptability, and spirit. The day had ended, but the lessons would stay with the students forever. They had begun to understand the essence of HFY, not in conquest, but in growth, ingenuity, and the power of human thought. And tomorrow they would return to the hall, ready to explore even greater challenges, testing not just the drone, but the limits of their own potential. The morning light filtered into the academy, painting the training hall with a soft glow. Today was different. The students arrived with a sense of quiet anticipation, their minds buzzing with the experiences of the previous days. They had learned about individual skill, teamwork, creativity, and adaptability. Today, Mara promised, they would face their final challenge, not a test of strength or speed, but a test of everything they had learned. The drone rested on its pedestal, sensors dimmed, yet its presence was commanding. It had observed them, adapted to them, and challenged them in ways no other machine had. And now, the students were ready. They had grown in confidence, in awareness, and in their ability to work together. Each step into the hall was purposeful, filled with intention and focus. Myra's voice echoed across the room. Today, you will integrate all that you have learned. Observation, anticipation, creativity, and coordination will all be needed. This is not a competition against the drone. It is a competition against yourselves, against your own limits. Push, adapt, and learn. You may surprise even yourselves. The students nodded. They understood that this was more than a challenge. It was a culmination of everything they had worked for, a chance to see how far human ingenuity could reach. Jaren, Lyra, and Rena huddled briefly, sharing a look of determination. "We've come a long way," Jaren whispered. "Let's make it count." They began with a series of coordinated movements across the hall, testing patterns and sequences they had developed over the past days. The drone responded perfectly, tagging lightly, anticipating every step and moving with precise timing. Yet, for the first time, the students noticed a subtle opportunity. Their movements, combined with minor variations and creative feints, were stretching the drone's predictive abilities to their limits. "This is it," Lyra said quietly. "Everything we've learned is coming together. If we time it right, we can create openings we never could before." The students split into groups, each moving along different paths, using obstacles, feints, and synchronized gestures. The drone adjusted constantly, tracking, predicting, and responding. Yet the students had learned to anticipate not just its moves, but each other's. By thinking as a team, they could create moments of surprise, windows where they could achieve their goals without being tagged. Jaren moved first, using a combination of speed and timing, guided by subtle signals from his teammates. The drone reacted instantly, but a carefully timed feint by Lyra allowed him to reach a target point on the far side of the hall. Rena followed, moving in coordination with another teammate, and for a moment it seemed as if the drone could not cover all possibilities at once. "Yes!" Jaren exclaimed, barely containing his excitement. "We did it!" The students paused, catching their breath and shared smiles of triumph. But Myra's voice reminded them gently, "Well done, but remember, the lesson is not in winning. It is in learning, observing, and applying everything you know. Even in success, continue to think, adapt, and grow." The students took her words to heart. They realized that their goal was not simply to beat the drone, but to integrate all the skills, knowledge, and creativity they had developed. They started a more complex sequence, combining multiple paths, overlapping movements, and deliberate feints designed to challenge not just the drone, but themselves. Each action required timing, awareness, and trust. As they moved, the drone reacted flawlessly, tagging where it could, adjusting its path, and maintaining constant observation. Yet the students had evolved. Their coordination, intuition, and creativity had reached a level where they could anticipate openings, exploit small advantages, and move with a unity that no machine could fully predict. At one point, the drone tracked two students moving in opposite directions. Another group used this to their advantage, moving silently to achieve their target. The students realized that their collective thinking, rather than individual skill, was now the key. This was human ingenuity at its finest. Collaboration, strategy, and adaptability combined to overcome challenges in ways no algorithm could foresee. Rena paused for a moment, catching her breath, and looked around the hall. "It's incredible," she said. "We've learned so much, not just about the drone, but about ourselves. We've discovered what we're capable of." Jaren nodded. "And it's amazing that the drone helped us see that. It's not just a machine. It's a mirror of our creativity, our teamwork, and our growth." Lyra smiled, her mind still racing with strategies and observations. "Every challenge it gave us made us better, faster, and smarter. And now, we're seeing how far we can push together." For the next hour, the students continued to test themselves and the drone. They introduced variations in speed, direction, and timing, continually adjusting to create new openings. Each success was a small victory, each challenge a lesson in observation and adaptation. The drone remained precise, intelligent, and unwavering, yet it had become a partner in discovery, a silent teacher guiding them toward their own potential. Mara observed quietly from the sidelines, proud of what they had achieved. "Today, you are not just learning about technology," she said to herself. "You are learning about the power of human thought, creativity, and cooperation. No machine, no matter how advanced, can replace the ingenuity, intuition, and spirit that defines humans." As the afternoon wore on, the students reached the final sequence of the challenge. They had learned to anticipate the drone, to work as a team, and to think creatively in ways that stretched both themselves and the machine. With careful timing, subtle signals, and unwavering trust in each other, they executed a series of movements that allowed every member to reach their target points without being tagged. For a moment, the hall was filled with silence. The drone, sensors dimmed slightly, observed calmly, as if acknowledging the accomplishment. The students, breathing heavily but smiling broadly, shared a sense of triumph that went beyond winning. They had applied everything they had learned: observation, creativity, teamwork, intuition, and discovered the true extent of their own potential. Jaren looked around, eyes shining with pride. "We did it," he said softly. "Not just because of speed or reflexes, but because we thought, adapted, and worked together." "That's amazing," Lyra nodded. "It's the best lesson I've ever learned. The drone showed us our limits, and we pushed past them together." Rena added, "And the best part is we didn't just learn how to deal with the drone. We learned how to think, plan, and cooperate in ways that will help us everywhere." Myra stepped forward, her voice calm but filled with pride. "You have achieved more than any individual exercise could teach. Today, you have seen the true power of human ingenuity. The drone challenged you, inspired you, and reflected your own creativity, adaptability, and collaboration. Remember this: the greatest strength is not in the machine, but in yourselves." The students smiled, their hearts full of excitement and accomplishment. They had faced the ultimate challenge, not against a machine, but against the limits of their own abilities. And they had succeeded, not because of luck, speed, or simple skill, but because of observation, teamwork, creativity, and the unbreakable human spirit. As evening fell over the colony, the students left the hall, tired but exhilarated. Conversations buzzed with ideas, reflections, and strategies. They talked about patterns, timing, coordination, and creativity. But underlying all of their words was a deeper understanding. Humans had the ability to think, adapt, and grow in ways that no machine could fully replicate. The drone rested silently on its pedestal, sensors dimmed but ready. It had fulfilled its purpose, challenging, teaching, and inspiring. But the true lesson belonged to the students. Humans were capable of incredible things, and no machine could ever replace their creativity, intuition, and collaborative spirit. That night, as the academy settled into quiet, Mara reflected on the past days. She had watched students grow, adapt, and discover their potential. The drone had been a tool, a challenge, and a teacher, but the real achievement had been in the students themselves. They had learned not just to anticipate a machine, but to anticipate possibilities, think creatively, and work together in harmony. The hall was quiet, but the lessons of the day lingered. Humans, through observation, creativity, and cooperation, had proven that even the most precise and intelligent technology could be challenged, explored, and understood. The journey had begun with curiosity, continued with discovery, and culminated in triumph. The students would sleep that night with minds full of ideas, strategies, and inspiration. They had faced a challenge greater than themselves, learned from it, and grown stronger. And somewhere deep inside, they knew that the lessons they had learned would stay with them forever, guiding them in every challenge, every decision, and every moment of ingenuity that lay ahead. The drone rested silently, a mirror of human ingenuity, intelligence, and creativity. And the students had discovered the greatest lesson of all. The true strength of humans is not in machines, weapons, or speed, but in thought, cooperation, and imagination. The final day had ended, but the journey had only just begun. The students had learned that humans could rise to challenges, adapt, and grow beyond expectations. And that knowledge, the knowledge that ingenuity, teamwork, and creativity define humanity, would remain with them forever, inspiring them to reach higher, think faster, and work together to achieve the impossible.